course, what's on the front of everybody's mind right now is what is going on in Islamabad, Pakistan, where, as you see right now, this is from just earlier today, members of the United States delegation are arrival there, and they are talking with the with the Iranian delegation, who was also there to try to see, is there any room for negotiations? Is there any way to get this war over? We are in a military pause. I hesitate to use the term ceasefire because that implies something even quasi semi-permanent. This is more like both sides are just kind of stopping the shooting for the moment to see what could happen next. The positions of the two sides coming in was pretty defiant. And interestingly enough, and I'm going to talk as we see this on the screen right now, the United States always gets a red carpet treatment. Everybody gets happy. But this one, I think, was the one that really is noticeable, because the Iranian side comes down here and it's like rock stars. I mean, you see smiles everywhere, flowers, hugs, red carpet for them. Yeah, there it is right there. This is not somebody who's coming hat in hand, somebody is militarily defeated, who knows that they can't win, etc. And I mean, and just look at the difference between that with the Vice President J.D. Vance and Witkoff and Kushner. It's like professional, the little sideways hug there, and then Gary, if it's available, if you can roll that back and compare that with the greeting that was given by the Iranians to the Pakistanis, and a little different there. So here comes the flag. I didn't see it. Maybe there were some flowers for the president, Vice President Vance. I don't know, but man, it looked like a lot more enthusiastic, and there was some more when they arrived at the hotel as well. But the bottom line is the Iranian side is definitely not in a capitulatory mood. In fact, they're pretty confident and cocky, one might even say, in saying that they have some pretty big conditions ready for talks. Now, obviously, they're there. So the conditions they set, they wanted some sanctions relief and for a confirmation from Israel that Lebanon was going to be included in the ceasefire. That's what they said were prerequisites for the talks. That hasn't happened as of just a minute ago. I checked just one real more time to come on before, and there's been no confirmation from Israel. As a matter of fact, I think almost the opposite. I wonder if I have that one handy here. I've got something to show with that one, if this might be it. Yeah, I think this is from Israeli media. U.S.-Iran talks begin in Pakistan. Tehran demands control of Hormuz and truce in Lebanon. Iran doubles down on the red lines, while BP Vance warns U.S. negotiators won't receive Iranian games. Trump claims U.S. starting to process the clearing out of the Hormuz. In fact, let's get to that one here too, because Trump says that has begun clearing mines from Hormuz, but the Iranian media says that vessels have been turned back after a warning. Meanwhile, the IDF, you may not be able to see that subhead underneath there. IDF says it struck some 200 Hezbollah targets in Lebanon over the past day, 200 targets. So that doesn't sound much like the Israeli side has any interest in doing what the Iranian side is asking for. To the contrary, it seems that just like and there's been lots of reporting out that President Trump, Iran, and Pakistan definitely had the ceasefire extending into Lebanon when this happened. And then the Israeli side, apparently there was an argument back and forth between Netanyahu and Trump, according to some reports. I guess you can see who won that argument with Netanyahu, as he kind of in your face both to the Pakistani side, the Iranian side, and the American side with this massive attack into southern Lebanon after all of that was negotiated. And we see here that they're continuing to go in there. 200 targets have been struck and no declaration of a ceasefire in Lebanon. We'll see what that does to the conversation, to the talks here. But let me show you where President Trump was. If the Iranian side was cocky and confident heading in, so too was the American side, as President Trump himself declares.
We're going to open up the Gulf with or without them, but that'll be open. We're going to be, or the Strait as they call it, and I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off one way or the other. It's going well. The Navy's gone, the Air Force is gone, all anti-aircraft is gone, the leaders are gone, the whole place is gone. So we'll see how it turns out. So it's JD and Steve and Jared. They have a good team, and they meet tomorrow. We'll see how it all works out.
What would a good deal look like for you?
No nuclear weapon, number one. I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it.
Yeah, but is it 99% of it? Because you had that in your hand on the 26th of February, 2 days, one day before you gave the order, 2 days before the war started. It was literally in your hand. 0% enrichment, zero stockpiles, inspections, American inspections, everything that anyone in the planet, to include the White House, would need to verify that Iran had no nuclear weapons and had no path to get one. It was handed to him in a golden platter. He threw it in the trash and instead chose war. So to come back now and say you're trying to get a negotiation toward that end, one may reasonably ask why anyone on the planet, who most acutely include the Iranian side, ever agree to it now when they already did and that wasn't accepted before. So when he says it was never regime change, I kind of think it was. I think that's exactly what it was. It's definitely what the Israeli side has always wanted. And yet there we have it. There was no regime change. There was a lot of assassinations of many top leaders, military and political, but it did this. The system itself is a vast bureaucrocy with multi levels. You can't destroy the government by assassinating a few people any more than you could if you assassinated a bunch of American leaders or British leaders or German leaders. You obviously it'd be an act of war and there would be a lot of retaliation, but the governments aren't going to fall because the people who are holding office fall any more than it did inside of Iran. So let's be clear on that. Apparently President Trump isn't clear on that. Now, he just a couple of hours ago, let's see, I guess it was about 3 hours ago, he posted another comment on Truth Social this morning where he starts off talking about the Trump derangement syndrome. Now, the question is, as I read this, which derangement syndrome are we actually talking about? Let me show you what I mean. He says the fake news media has lost total credibility, not that they had any to begin with. So he talks about this common thing that he always finds with the media. Anybody who says anything he doesn't like, he considers fake news. Because of their massive Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS, they love saying that Iran is, quote, winning, when in fact everyone knows that they are losing and losing big. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their anti-aircraft apparatus, non-existent. Radar is dead. Their missiles and drone factories have been largely obliterated, along with missiles and drones themselves. And most importantly, their longtime leaders are no longer with us. And then another weird opportunity there to say, praise be to Allah, which of course is an insult to the Muslim religion. Again, not the first time that he's done that. So that is definitely a poke in the eye of really most Muslims, and definitely those of the Shia version of Islam. But let's talking about Trump derangement syndrome. Now, he's talking about anyone who says anything against him, he considers TDS. But when you read his comments there that I highlighted in the blue here, that's a big red flag to me, because he bases his fact that, quote, everyone knows that Iran is losing and losing big, and then he cites their Navy is gone, Air Force, anti-aircraft apparatus, radar, missiles, drone factories have been largely obliterated, along with drones themselves, and blah, blah, blah. Well, but as we keep showing you over and over, this is the Yazd system. This is one of, depending on who you listen to, between 27 and 40 of these things that are spread throughout the country. And we have tried multiple times to take this particular fortress down and have never succeeded. I think 4 was the last time I saw. And therefore, what can Trump be meaning when he says that they have been largely obliterated? You haven't even touched them. We've seen anecdotal evidence that maybe one of the fortresses under the ground was severely damaged, because we showed you that early in the war where there was these massive explosions seeming to come out of the side of a mountain, indicating that maybe a penetrator had gotten inside of there and did cause some damage. We don't know for sure that's what happened. We don't know for sure that that wasn't the actual bomb itself exploding and making the explosions, as opposed to secondary explosions from within blowing back out. It's impossible to know, but it's at least plausible that that's what happened. So far, we've seen evidence, video evidence, that might conclude one has been taken out. So to suggest that you've taken the majority or obliterated all of it, I mean, that you can't possibly believe that if you know all of the evidence. Now, we've also heard here in recent weeks that President Trump has fed a 2-minute compilation of all these videos. And every time you see something on most of the Western media, you see playing in the background all these images of stuff blowing up in Iran, planes, ships, rocket launchers, you name it, all kinds of stuff. And if that's all you see, if you only see those kinds of things, and you don't look at images like this one, and you don't look at the classified intelligence that shows stuff is spread throughout the country, or some of that recent stuff, I think Gary just showed you yesterday, a pretty remarkable video of the operation inside of these things. We had a glimpse of that. That tells you that you have obliterated nothing that matters. And when you continue to see the missiles impacting on right up until the time, yeah, that one right there, that is just pretty amazing. That just now shows you what's underneath some of this stuff. What you're seeing right there, by the way, is a video of a nuclear blast and how these facilities have been designed to endure that, absorb it, and not be destroyed because of the granite and how deep it is under the ground. And you see on the diagram there how some of those missiles that we have previously showed seemingly come out of the side of a mountain or out of the middle of the desert. That's what's going on underneath the ground. These silos, you can't even see where they come out, and yet there they are on the inside. So if you see this, if you're seeing this kind of a video, then President Trump should not be able to say everything has been obliterated. That's not just a minor issue, because one worries that that's not just President Trump trying to put a good face on something. It could be President Trump believing what he's being told. Because look, just understand, if you know what we're showing here, if you know this is the one of dozens of these things scattered throughout the country, and you know that they're virtually impossible, even with nuclear weapons, to get at, then you may change the calculation of what your course of action is going to be, because you can realize that even if you use tactical nuclear weapons, you're not going to be able to stop those things. Because you can't get at them. There's a reason why. When I was on active duty during the 2003 Iraq War, I was working at the Pentagon, as I think I've mentioned a few times. At that time, was responsible for the coordination and the mobilization of multiple units and replacements, whatever, to keep the flow going throughout that war. And because we didn't know what Iran might do or what some of their allies might do, we had what they call split ops in the operations center. I was in the Army Operations Center at the time, assigned to the Army staff. And half of our crew went to what's called Site R. It's not a classified, the name of it's not. It's out there in the open. You can Google that. And what it is, it's a certain location not too far from Washington, D.C. that is literally in the side of a mountain. And you have to take road transportation underneath this side of the mountain, because it's deep inside of burrowed under a mountain, which looks just like the stuff that you're seeing here. That's why this looks so familiar to me. And it was designed specifically to survive nuclear blasts. They have blast doors and the whole thing. So I have personally operated inside of these things, so I know that that's the case. And so obviously, so too does Iran. So that should inform, if you're saying you're going to be able to defeat somebody and you're going to be able to open the Strait of Hormuz, you've got to solve that problem if you're aware of that problem. And unfortunately, I'm just not sure that we are, or I'm not sure that he is. Let's continue on. So one of the other issues that I mentioned a little bit there from the Iranian side is that they said you're going to have to include Lebanon. All of our proxies are going to have to be included in this ceasefire. And then once that's done, then we can talk about ending the war on terms that everybody can agree to. Everybody's going to start off saying, listen, we have this maximal set of objectives. You're going to hear the American sides here in just a second. But one of the big issues there that we need to understand is that the Israeli side, even though they're not part of these negotiations, their presence is definitely felt. This is overnight here in Lebanon. So again, you have over and over the Israeli side making sure that everybody's aware, and that means everyone from the Ayatollah or the current senior leaders in Iran to President Trump, that they still are calling the shots. You can say whatever one, you can characterize it however you want, but when you know for sure that the United States said we have a ceasefire and it includes Lebanon, when the Iranian side and the Pakistani side publicly confirmed at the time of the announcement that it included Lebanon, and then after the fact, then the Israeli side sticks the thumb in the President Trump's eye and not just continues on with the attacks into Lebanon, but escalates them to historic levels. And again, overnight, hours before these talks began, draw your own conclusions. But that's where we are, and that's why this is so difficult. Let me tell you some of the other things that are really putting lots of pressure. I keep showing you the price of oil, and so we know that one pretty well, but there are other things involved too. It's not just the price of oil, but it's the amount of oil. What you're seeing on the screen here is the amount of oil producers and how much they have been able to get out. So the ordinary time, as I think you've heard several points during many of our shows as well as others, is that there was about 100 to 130 oil tankers transiting the Gulf of Hormuz every day. Some empty ones coming in, full ones going out. And there was somewhere around 19 or 20 million barrels per day of oil, plus all the other things that go along with that. Well, just having the Strait closed doesn't merely shut down how much oil gets to the rest of the world, but how much these producers in there, and I keep telling you how important this is, how much they can get out, and that is of vital importance to each of these countries. You probably can't read the small print on there. I'll just tell you, the far left-hand bar there shows 82% reduction in crude oil losses, export losses. The first one is by Iraq. The second one, 75% loss. This is since the war started on I think this is as of the 1st of March. Kuwait has lost 75% of its exports. Qatar, 70%. Saudi Arabia, 34%. Saudi Arabia is less than some of the others because they have alternative ways to get oil out than just through the Strait of Hormuz. They're trying to go out through a pipeline that leads to the Red Sea. At the moment, that's still open. UAE, they've only lost 26%. Interesting, Oman has increased to 117%. Because a lot of their ports are located outside the Strait of Hormuz. So that works well for them. They've been able to get that stuff open. And of course, Oman has some friendly relations with Iran. So they have not threatened any shipping that is working on their ports. So they've had a windfall. But overall, you see the far right there, the total 44% reduction for the GCC altogether is been curtailed since then, which means that their income has been cut down by that amount. So they are really struggling. There's other things that are struggling too with some things that are more permanent damage. For example, you may remember the Pars gas field that was attacked by Israel. And then there was some other things that were done by the Iranian side in retaliation, because part of that was owned by the Iran side. Part of it was owned by Qatar, et cetera. But some of the damage that had been done to that was irreparable. And it's going to take probably years once the war is over and it's safe that they can start to rebuild. Some of that capacity is going to take years to recover. So even if the war ends today and they come up with some magical formula that everybody can agree to, and Iran just says, okay, all constraints off, everything's back to the normal the way it was before, that's obviously not going to happen. But let's, for the sake of argument here, let's say that it was. It's still going to take a long time to get all of this unwound. You have about almost 2 months, literally. If everything, all the constraints came off, it would take about 2 months to get everything back into the normal flow. So a lot of this is already going to cause some problems. And by the way, we're going to have Commodore Steve Jeremy on the show next week, who is an energy expert as well. And that's his primary job these days. And he's going to lay out a case to where we may already, for many economic reasons, which he'll detail, we may already have baked in about a 5% loss in the global economy, which is going to cause a recession. And he says if this goes on 2 or 3 more months, it could cause a severe depression similar to 1929, because there's all these things are compounding I'm talking about. So there's also aluminum plants throughout the Gulf, both in Iran and in the GCC countries. One hits one side, the other tit for tat hits the other side. You've had, of course, the fertilizers, the feedstocks, helium, natural gas, of course. A lot of these things and some of the damage to the actual oil production facilities themselves have already been damaged, and that is going to cost a long, long time. So even if everything happens, it's going to be a very slow for this to get back. So a lot of this stuff, there's problems already baked in. All of these things are on President Trump's minds here, and he understands just how difficult this is going to be. But that problem of getting it resolved is going to be even more complicated because there are those in the United States that seem to be pushing back on this. And here is the view inside of the United States, first of all. And just consider, this is I'm going to show you here an ambassador, a former ambassador, a United States ambassador, who is going to be talking from the Trump playbook. He's trying to make President Trump happy. And the problem is when President Trump keeps hearing stuff like this, and when it keeps being fed stuff like these 2-minute montage videos of all the stuff that gets blown up in Iran, he comes to start believing that, and not the stuff that Gary just showed you with that video, that I showed you with that diagram of the Yazd facility, etc. He's got to have the truth. But right now, here's what he does have.
The Trump doctrine. All you have to do is look at this presidency so far. President Trump has made clear, for example, in Venezuela and other places, that he means business. If he is absolutely ready to make a deal, and if he don't make a deal, he's holding firm to his terms and says, look, we will pursue our imperatives militarily if necessary. It actually very much reminds me of President Reagan negotiating with Mikhail Gorbachev during the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, see, a couple of things really got my antenna going there. One is he again refers to Venezuela. Like whatever happened to Venezuela was easily transferable over here. And just like Trump was right there, he's going to be right here. That's, of course, music to Trump's ears. He loves to hear that. Don't make him believe that. Don't try to make him happy in such that you reinforce fraudulent or badly flawed concepts. There's no relation between the two at all. They're radically different. We've talked about that a lot of times before. But if Trump believes that it is, then he may act on this flawed belief. Second thing he said there was, he said, listen, Trump is absolutely willing to make a deal. Come on, man. Who's going to believe that? We had a deal, as I mentioned, on the 26th of February. The Iranian side gave the deal that they had never given before, and I am very confident will never give again. It was a golden moment as well as a golden platter. Trump threw it in the trash. What rational person would say, okay, the same deal we gave you before there was war, that would have prevented war, that would have kept the Strait of Hormuz open, would have kept your bases from getting blown up, would have kept your men from getting destroyed? Sure, we'll do it again, and we'll see if we believe you. I mean, they would be the height of fools to actually trust anything and put their security in the risk of the United States. They won't do it. I'll just go out on a limb here. They won't do it. Not that they're unlikely, because one thing you can say about the Iranian side is they show no evidence of being fools. Okay, that's one thing. That's with Ambassador Mike Wallace. Then we have let's see, who was the second one there? Look at the wrong place here. Our good buddy Jack Keane. He's got his 2 cents to throw in.
No, I'm not optimistic about it, because this is what the Iranians do. They are masters at obfuscation and delaying negotiations. What's on the table is everything that they value. Everything, from the nuclear to the ballistic missiles to their drones to support for proxies, everything they stand for, they would have to voluntarily give up. It's hard to get your head around the fact that they would actually do that. What they will likely do is make concessions on a number of points that will incentivize us. Oh, this is different. They're willing to make a deal here. Drag this thing out for a number of weeks. And why do they want to drag it out? Well, because they don't want us to go back and reattack.
Yeah, well, who would? But listen, yeah, he said, look, everything's on the table that they want, that they find valuable. No kidding, Jack. No kidding. It was already on the table. No, it wasn't on the table. It was on that golden platter. Again, you're reinforcing all the worst things from President Trump. Because if something doesn't have a chance of success, and if you're going to badly contort the conditions that are there and then still say we're looking for a negotiated settlement, then who's the fool here? Now, I think it's pretty clear that Jack Keane has no interest in, he didn't want, well, we know for sure, I don't have to think. Remember, he explicitly said before the war started, begged President Trump, do not have a negotiated settlement, because anything that leaves the current regime in charge is going to be a strategic loss for us. You remember when he said that? Straight up. So now that he's trying to make the case, well, you can't trust them now. They obfuscate, they lie, and whatever else, even though it seems more like he's looking in the mirror when he says that. But be that as it may, it's clear that he's trying to paint a picture for President Trump, whom he gets on the phone with, and by his own account just a couple of days ago. Don't listen to anything they say now. Go back to the military path. Well, the problem is, big time, there is no military path to forcing open the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that other well-noted military scholar, Senator Lindsey Graham, argues otherwise.
How do you see it? I know you talked to the president this afternoon.
Yeah, I did. Number one, I'm glad we're trying to solve it through diplomacy. What are we looking for? An Iran that can't build ballistic missiles to hit Europe or us. We're looking for them to get out of the state sponsor of terrorism business. And we're looking for them to abandon their quest to create a nuclear bomb because we fear they will use it. I've never felt better about the state that Iran is in. As we talk to them about ending this war, President Trump has done everything and then some to weaken them. And if they say no now, that tells you how crazy they are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Crazy. Who is Senator Graham? Because again, man, there's a lot of people that need to be talking in a mirror and appear to be talking in a mirror. Who's crazy? The one that is trying to find a way to get off this and tried to find diplomacy to prevent war in the first place are the ones that twisted diplomacy and intentionally sabotaged it to get war. And then now once they have war, they're again trying to put on the facade that they're trying to get the same deal they already had that no rational person is going to give. Ergo, the only path left is more military. That's what Lindsey Graham wants. That's what the Israeli side wants. That's what Jack Keane wants. Whose side are they on? They're not on America's side. They're not on your side, Americans. They're not on my side. They're not on the troops' side. They're just disposable fodder for them to get what they want. And even that is just twisted. You talk about somebody who's crazy. You think that with all the stuff that I've showed you here, all the stuff that we've been talking for months before this started, that you still, even after it's been proven to you, first last year in the 2025 12-day war, and then now every day since this one started here, there is no military solution. Everything that we have is insufficient to force a military concession and compulsion on the Iranian side. And yet still, you have this fantasy that no, we just need a few more bombs, just a little more time, and then the impossible is going to happen. I mean, who's crazy here?